I am Julia, and the precise moment I achieved total, irreversible victory was not when I presented the physical evidence, but when the judge stopped the proceedings entirely, removed his reading glasses, and looked at my ex-husband Victor with an expression of pure, unadulterated contempt. We were deep into the final, agonizing day of my divorce hearing, battling the man whose arrogance was exceeded only by his capacity for professional deceit and personal cruelty. He had spent the last 2 hours smugly lying about our marital assets, perjuring himself with a practiced, irritating calm that made my blood boil with righteous fury. Then my astute lawyer, Thomas, presented the encrypted flash drive containing the shocking results of my months of covert, obsessive work. The judge initially resisted, dismissing it as unverified digital material from a domestic dispute. But Thomas, under my strict instructions, insisted it proved malicious intent and financial fraud beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge sighed audibly, plugged the drive into his secured laptop, and began to read the documents in total silence. His face darkened dramatically from initial skepticism to profound shock, then curdled into undisguised disgust. He finally looked up, bypassing the lawyers completely. He leveled his gaze directly at Victor, who was foolishly smiling, convinced the drama was over. "Mr. Sterling," the judge's voice echoed, cold, lethal, and carrying the full weight of the court's authority. "I believe the court needs to hear this specific communication. It speaks directly to your credibility and honesty." He then cleared his throat and began reading Victor's secret direct message out loud. "I moved the $4 million yesterday. The bitch will never find it, and she'll be lucky to get the dog." The air in the sterile, high-ceilinged courtroom instantly seized up, becoming painfully thick and silent, heavy with the weight of the undeniable truth. The sound of the judge's calm, official voice reading that vulgar, damning sentence was far more devastating than any furious courtroom yell could have been. Victor's face, moments ago radiating supreme, arrogant confidence, collapsed instantly and completely, turning a ghastly, blotchy shade of white. His expensive silk tie seemed to physically choke him. His lawyer, Ms. Hayes, a predator in a tailored suit, shot halfway out of her seat, clutching her legal pad, stammering frantically. "Objection, Your Honor. Private communication. Hearsay. Unverified." But the judge cut her off with a single slicing motion of his hand. "Silence. This is a direct admission of fraud and perjury regarding the valuation and concealment of the offshore accounts," the judge stated, his voice gaining undeniable volume. "Furthermore, the malicious, contemptuous intent revealed in this correspondence speaks volumes about the entire spirit of these proceedings, making further testimony from Mr. Sterling entirely unreliable." The shock was absolute, rippling through the small gallery. I felt my hands clasped tightly in my lap, trembling violently, not from fear, but from the immense, cleansing, cathartic release of a year's worth of suppressed rage and humiliation. This was the opening salvo, the public exposure I had meticulously planned, and the emotional core of my long betrayal was finally being laid bare for the world to see. I knew that the instant I heard that $4 million figure read aloud, the battle for my financial and emotional future had just been decisively won. The seeds of this catastrophic public exposure were sown months earlier in the brutal, unapologetic terms of the divorce itself. Victor, a self-made monster of entitlement and a textbook narcissist, had filed, completely blindsiding me after I confronted him about his escalating infidelity. He didn't just want a separation. He wanted a financial clean sweep, leveraging his vast network and a cadre of crooked accountants to systematically conceal millions in assets accumulated during our 15-year marriage. His predatory plan was simple and excruciatingly cruel. Claim a minimal, highly illiquid asset pool, leave me with just enough to be financially dependent on meager alimony, and parade his new life without any consequence or financial accountability. He was utterly convinced that my background as a data scientist meant I was intellectually incapable of understanding or challenging his complex, high-level financial maneuvers. The stakes were astronomical, climbing into the double-digit millions. If I failed to prove his fraud, I faced immediate financial ruin, potentially losing my home and stability. But worse than the money was the deep, visceral hurt of his casual, absolute disrespect. He saw me as a minor, bothersome inconvenience to be swept carelessly aside. The infamous dog comment, "She'll be lucky to get the dog," was the final, unforgivable insult that permanently transformed my devastation into cold, calculated, unyielding resolve. I stopped crying immediately and I started hunting. Victor's towering arrogance was, ironically, my greatest weapon, a dangerous, glaring blind spot I exploited with clinical, professional precision. He genuinely believed that high-level encryption and two-factor authentication were sufficient, impenetrable shields against a petty domestic dispute, handled by local court systems. What he catastrophically failed to grasp was that my professional life was dedicated to advanced forensic data recovery, nonlinear predictive modeling, and sophisticated pattern recognition. Skills honed in a corporate world he dismissively referred to as nerd stuff. I didn't hire an expensive, visible private investigator. I became the investigator myself, using my own skill set. The initial breakthrough was the discovery of his second phone, an anonymous prepaid device he used exclusively for his most sensitive financial collusion and his most cruel, unguarded comments about me and his mistress. That device, which I covertly accessed during a fake romantic weekend, I suggested to lull his suspicions, was a digital treasure trove. It contained thousands of direct messages, DMs, exchanged over a specific, heavily used private messaging platform, detailing every lie, every hidden account, and every venomous plot point he had concocted with his lawyer and his mistress. The emotional cost of reading those messages was almost unbearable, confirming years of quiet cruelty, but it was absolutely necessary fuel for the fire of my revenge. The sheer volume and chilling clarity of the DMs were overwhelming, revealing not just common infidelity, but a deliberate, organized criminal conspiracy to commit perjury and grand financial fraud against the court and me. I worked tirelessly in my home office for weeks, existing on 4 hours of sleep, using specialized proprietary software and my own bespoke algorithms to sift through the terabytes of data, organizing the thousands of messages into 4 critical, legally actionable categories. The categories were meticulously labeled: 1. Explicit perjury, asset hiding; 2. Malicious intent, defamation/cruelty; 3. Collusion with counsel, ethical violation; and 4. Third-party confessions, the mistress and the money. This meticulous organization, cross-referenced with bank dates and wire transfers, was the undisputed key to my victory, ensuring the information wasn't dismissed as a jealous rage dump, but presented as a clear, irrefutable prosecution brief. I presented the classified data to Thomas, my lawyer, who was initially skeptical but quickly turned ashen as he saw the evidence mount. The twist Thomas immediately identified. The DMs clearly referenced actions taken after the initial separation date and divorce filing, making Victor's claims of financial stability and honest disclosure a devastating lie that constituted criminal fraud. The stakes immediately shifted from a simple divorce settlement to a potential full-scale criminal investigation. Thomas, my lawyer, was a professional realist. Measured, strategic, and deeply ethical. The moment he grasped the devastating magnitude of the evidence, he refused to use the DMs for any petty advantage, insisting they must serve only one purpose: proving Victor's fraudulent intent and perjury to the court. We agreed on a high-stakes maximum impact strategy: withhold the DMs entirely until Victor was securely on the stand, committing his final testimony under oath. Once he committed himself to a provable lie, we would drop the hammer of truth. This strategy maximized the legal impact, transforming the messages from messy evidence of infidelity into irrefutable proof of a felony, guaranteeing legal action. We worked tirelessly to ensure the metadata, timestamps, IP locations, and user IDs, was pristine and legally sound, anticipating Ms. Hayes's inevitable attempt to dismiss it as a fabricated forgery. The high tension of the waiting game was nearly unbearable. I had to sit through 2 days of hearings, watching Victor brazenly lie about his financial stability, his moral character, and his commitment to the marriage, knowing the secret weapon resting in my purse. Every calculated untruth, he told, simply deepened the pit he was digging for himself. The psychological warfare from the defense was excruciating and deliberately designed to break me. Ms. Hayes, Victor's lawyer, was a true master of passive-aggressive courtroom theater, frequently making snide, audible comments about my lack of business acumen, and suggesting I was simply trying to extort a wealthy man. During one recess, she even cornered me near the restroom line, looking me up and down with icy disdain. "You have no real evidence, Julia. Just bitterness and baseless suspicion from a jealous wife. This legal drama will all be over soon, and you will fade away." Her confidence was absolute, built entirely on Victor's assurances that his digital trails were untraceable and that I was emotionally fragile. This public dismissal only fueled my resolve into cold steel. I maintained a calm, impassive mask throughout, refusing to give her the emotional reaction she desperately craved. The preparation became obsessive. I ran through every possible defense Victor could offer: denial, fabrication, claiming intoxication, and created a cross-reference sheet connecting each critical DM to a specific bank record or wire transfer, proving that the digital communication led directly to verifiable financial actions. I ensured that the evidence wasn't just convincing. It was a digital bulletproof vest against any attempt to deflect the undeniable truth. The detailed authenticity of the DMs was my personal fortress against his lies. I spent dozens of agonizing hours on the metadata alone, running proprietary hash functions and chain of custody logs to preemptively defeat any claim of forgery or tampering. This attention to detail was not just professional diligence. It was deeply personal revenge. I meticulously documented the IP addresses and general locations linked to the messages, proving, chillingly, that Victor was often colluding with his mistress and the crooked accountant from my marital home, sometimes as I slept in the next room. This established temporal and geographic context was the final, unassailable layer of proof that no defense lawyer could break. The effort was cripplingly draining, forcing me to confront the reality of his double life constantly, but I knew that if the defense could plant even a speck of doubt about the data's integrity, Victor could walk free, and the entire effort would be for nothing. My professional reputation was now on the line, and I was determined to prove that a data scientist's skills were more dangerous than any traditional private investigator's findings. The final morning of the hearing arrived, thick with suffocating tension, the culmination of a year of quiet war. Victor took the stand for the last time, radiating smug certainty and wearing a new, overly expensive watch that Thomas and I immediately recognized as an undeclared asset. He had successfully weathered Thomas's initial cross-examination, maintaining his facade of financial honesty with practiced ease and arrogant smiles. He lied about the true value of his startup, claiming it was struggling and only worth a fraction of its true valuation. He lied about the investment accounts, claiming they were premarital and untouched. He lied about his assets, his lifestyle, and his future earnings, committing flagrant perjury with an unblinking, audacious gaze. Thomas, knowing the trap was perfectly set, played his part brilliantly, letting Victor bury himself deeper with every calculated untruth. The emotional core of my long, painful wait reached its critical breaking point. I fought the urge to stand up and scream the truth, but I held fast, waiting for Thomas's cue. The judge, however, was growing visibly impatient with Victor's rehearsed, evasive answers, sensing the dishonesty but lacking the concrete proof to challenge it directly. The stage was set for the intervention. Thomas, in a masterful and utterly decisive move that defied courtroom convention, handed the flash drive directly to the judge, bypassing the court clerk, Ms. Hayes, and all due process for standard discovery. He simply stated, his voice ringing with quiet authority, "Your Honor, this is not discovery. This is direct, irrefutable evidence of a crime committed in this very courtroom, perjury and financial fraud. We urge the court to verify the contents immediately under secure conditions." The sheer boldness of the move stunned the entire room into absolute silence. Ms. Hayes was on her feet instantly, shrieking about due process and illegal evidence seizure. The judge, sensing the potential magnitude of the claim and utterly weary of Victor's obvious lies, accepted the drive, a deliberate, final decision that signaled a profound legal shift. He spent an excruciating silent 5 minutes reviewing my meticulously prepared folders. His jaw tightened visibly. Then came the first devastating act, the public reading of Victor's contemptuous DM, forever sealing his fate and destroying his credibility. The shock reverberated through Victor's entire body, an immediate, visible physical collapse of his arrogant persona. The reading of the first DM, revealing the hidden $4 million and the cold contempt for me, was just the beginning. The judge, fueled by righteous legal fury, wasn't finished. He scrolled through the folder I had labeled Category 1, Explicit Perjury, Asset Hiding. He began reading a rapid-fire succession of DMs, each one confirming Victor's testimony was a blatant lie. Tell the accountant the valuation needs to be $10 million less than we actually filed. The Cayman funds need to be routed through the Shell Corp by Tuesday. I told them I sold the vintage car. Make sure the bill of sale looks real. Every sentence was a digital confession, a bullet point in his ruin. Victor's lawyer, Ms. Hayes, made repeated desperate objections citing privacy and hearsay, but the judge, now fully enraged, silenced her every time, declaring the DMs as admissions against interest and compelling evidence. The stakes escalated dramatically from a contested divorce to a potential indictment for financial crimes. The gallery, packed with Victor's business associates, watched in horrified silence as their partner's entire financial structure was publicly dismantled by his own careless words. The judge then moved inexorably to the folder I called Category 2, Malicious Intent. This folder contained the most cruel and degrading messages Victor exchanged with his mistress, detailing his plan not just to leave me, but to ruin me socially and emotionally. The judge, though visibly hesitant to read such vulgar private correspondence, recognized its potent legal utility in establishing malice for punitive damages. He selected one DM. I've started the rumors about Julia's unstable mental health. It will look like a total breakdown when I take everything. She's pathetic. The reading caused a collective loud gasp in the courtroom. It proved that Victor's financial fraud was motivated by a deliberate, vindictive desire to cause me maximum emotional and professional harm. The emotional payoff was profound. Tears finally streamed down my face, not of sadness or defeat, but of bitter, cleansing, cathartic release. The truth, ugly and cruel, was finally out, proving that my bitterness was justified, and my relentless pursuit of justice was absolutely necessary. The tension peaked when the judge moved to the folder I had labeled Category 3, Collusion with Counsel. This was the ultimate nuclear option, the revelation that could ruin Ms. Hayes's professional life. The messages revealed Victor was sharing confidential legal strategy and mocking the court process with his mistress and, crucially, with a contact who appeared to be a paralegal in Ms. Hayes's own firm, named Carla. The twist was horrifying for the defense, confirming ethical rot at the highest level. The judge read the DM. My contact Carla at Hayes's firm says they believe her evidence is weak. Keep lying about the startup valuation. They bought the premarital story. Ms. Hayes was visibly pale, slamming her files shut and demanding a recess in a desperate, failing attempt to stem the bleeding. She was now potentially implicated in aiding fraud and breaching ethical duties, a severe professional violation. The judge immediately ordered a full, sealed inquiry into Ms. Hayes's firm and their involvement. The case against Victor was no longer just a divorce. It was a full-scale ethical and criminal investigation that consumed everyone involved. The judge's immediate ruling was swift, powerful, and definitive, permanently altering the outcome of the case and the entire course of Victor's life. He declared Victor's entire testimony entirely unreliable, struck it from the record, and ruled his conduct contemptuous of the court. He issued an immediate temporary restraining order on Victor's remaining assets, freezing the very Cayman accounts Victor had bragged about hiding. He then announced that the financial discovery would be completely restarted, with all expenses for the forensic audit falling solely to Victor. The emotional shock of the ruling was palpable. Victor, realizing his absolute ruin, slumped in his chair, his head in his hands, no longer the swaggering CO, but a broken, exposed criminal. The final public DM the judge read, one of Victor's mocking messages about the judge himself, only added fuel to the fire. This old fool will never understand cryptocurrency. I'm unstoppable. The contempt charge was issued immediately. The true, devastating final reveal came when the DMs implicated a third, unexpected party, Victor's own mother, Patricia. I had found a cryptic exchange in the malicious intent folder where Victor referenced Mom's investment advice regarding the hidden funds. The DMs suggested Victor's mother had actively advised him on the best jurisdictions for hiding the $4 million, using her own discreet high society connections. The judge, reviewing this chilling detail, ordered an immediate subpoena of Patricia's personal financial records, expanding the investigation to cover potential family conspiracy in the fraud. The stakes soared into the familial realm, destroying Victor's last emotional anchor. My revenge, born from his personal malice, was now dismantling his entire support system, proving that his toxicity was inherited and enabled, a systemic family rot. The courtroom exploded into chaos as the judge immediately adjourned and the gavel slammed down with finality. Victor was immediately surrounded by court security, now facing possible arrest for contempt and fraud. Ms. Hayes gathered her files, her face a mask of professional ruin, her career in jeopardy. I sat quietly, letting the overwhelming adrenaline subside, a profound, cleansing sense of catharsis washing over me. Thomas, my lawyer, simply squeezed my shoulder. "You didn't just win, Julia. You cleaned house and set a legal precedent," he whispered, awe in his voice. The media, who had been quietly present, sensing the tension, scrambled for the phones. The story of the judge reading the secret DMs becoming instant, explosive headline news across every major city. My quiet, data-driven revenge had become the biggest legal scandal of the year, a powerful warning to every wealthy man who thinks he can lie his way out of responsibility. The media frenzy was immediate, relentless, and unforgiving. The story, Judge Reed's cheating husband's DMs, "She'll be lucky to get the dog," was everywhere, amplified by the emotional punch of the content and the high-profile scandal. Victor's reputation was incinerated. His business associates and board members, many of whom were present in the courtroom, initiated immediate public reviews of his financial conduct, leading to his swift, humiliating removal as CEO. His public humiliation was the ultimate punishment, far exceeding any fine or financial penalty. I gave no interviews, maintaining my dignified silence and letting the DMs speak for themselves, which only intensified the public demand for details. My integrity was instantly affirmed. The court documents verified every single detail of my accusation. The ultimate emotional payoff was the profound understanding that Victor's supposed power was always an illusion, easily shattered by the unvarnished truth. He was too arrogant and foolish to properly conceal. The legal process that followed was utterly devoid of compromise, moving with surgical precision. The DMs served as an undeniable, perfect roadmap to every hidden asset, every offshore account, and every fraudulent document. The forensic audit, funded entirely by Victor's frozen funds, exposed over $12 million in previously concealed marital assets. The judge, guided by the overwhelming evidence of malicious intent and financial crime, awarded me a settlement far beyond standard division. The final verdict granted me over 70% of the marital estate and awarded significant punitive damages specifically for the emotional distress and professional harm caused by Victor's smear campaign. I was also granted full ownership of the family home, securing my stability. The final sweet detail. The judge, in his written ruling, explicitly referenced the DM about the dog, ensuring the line was preserved in legal history. My life was permanently reconstructed on the smoking ruins of Victor's lies. I used my substantial settlement to fund my own data analytics firm, specializing exclusively in financial fraud detection, a company built directly on the skills I honed dismantling Victor's empire. I was no longer defined by his betrayal, but by my powerful, effective response to it. Victor, facing serious criminal charges for perjury and contempt, vanished from the public eye. His professional career in ruins and his name synonymous with public failure. I heard through old legal contacts that he was forced to sell every last luxury asset just to cover his mounting legal fees and audit costs, the ultimate poetic justice for a man who valued appearance above all else. My revenge wasn't cruel. It was an act of surgical justice that ensured the scales were balanced, finally validating my intellectual worth and guaranteeing my financial freedom. The final, lasting triumph was not the massive amount of money, but the quiet, profound strength I discovered in the process of fighting back relentlessly. I had taken the worst betrayal of my life and turned it into my greatest professional achievement and my most powerful marketing tool. I looked at the dog, a loyal golden retriever, who still slept peacefully on my couch every night. Victor had prophesied I'd be lucky to get him. Instead, I got the house, the money, the thriving career, and the dog. My story became a quiet legend in the legal community, a powerful cautionary tale for deceitful spouses and arrogant lawyers alike. The true victory was the knowledge that I had fought the fire, alone, and emerged stronger, smarter, and infinitely wealthier, proving definitively that a data scientist's most dangerous weapon is always the unvarnished, authenticated truth. The emotional reckoning continued long after the verdict. I spent months processing the insidious cruelty contained within the DMs, not just the financial malice, but the personal mockery. I realized Victor had systematically undermined my self-worth for years, and the divorce was merely the final financial step in his plan to destroy me entirely. The catharsis was not instant. It was a slow, deliberate healing process, fueled by the evidence of his undeniable guilt. The public validation, however, expedited my recovery, replacing the shame he intended me to feel with justifiable pride. I learned that data doesn't just reveal financial truths. It can expose the core character of a person, and Victor's was rotten to the core. My firm, now named Veritas Forensics, Veritas meaning truth, rapidly gained notoriety. My story was the best advertisement possible. We specialized in analyzing digital communication patterns to find hidden assets and prove malicious intent in high-net-worth divorces and corporate fraud cases. The irony was sweet. Victor's own betrayal was the foundation of my highly successful, multi-million-dollar business. I was doing crucial work, helping others who were targeted by narcissistic manipulation, all thanks to the skills I sharpened while dismantling my own marriage. Every new client success was a quiet, professional validation of the path I had chosen. The relationship with my lawyer, Thomas, evolved into a powerful professional alliance. He became my main referral partner, deeply impressed by my forensic capabilities and the legal bombshell I had manufactured. We co-authored a professional paper on the admissibility of authenticated DMs in family court, citing Victor's case, anonymized, of course, as the precedent. This further cemented my standing as a professional leader, far surpassing the socialite role Victor had tried to assign me. I was no longer an ex-wife. I was an expert witness and a CEO who commanded respect. The final, absolute closure came when I realized I no longer thought about Victor. The anger had burned itself out, replaced by a cold, analytical indifference. He was a closed case file, a solved problem. I focused on expanding Veritas, buying a new office building downtown, a stark, modern tower symbolizing my ascent. I felt profound gratitude for the moment the judge had decided to read those DMs. It was a public turning point, a definitive split between the person I was and the powerful, independent woman I had become. The dog, Max, was my constant, loyal companion through it all. He was the only innocent party mentioned in that horrible DM, and he became a symbol of the simple, honest love Victor could never offer. Max and I would take long walks in the park, enjoying the peace and the security of my new life. Victor had thought his casual cruelty would leave me with nothing but a dog. Instead, Max was the one thing I cherished most, a silent, furry testament to the fact that I had escaped the poison and won everything. My life was calm, focused, and free. I realized that the biggest flaw in Victor's plan wasn't his encryption or his crooked accountant. It was his underestimation of my intellect and my capacity for resilience. He had mocked me as a mere data scientist, forgetting that data scientists turn chaos into clear, actionable truth. His digital confessions were the ultimate proof. His arrogance had dictated his strategy, and my precise, cold logic had dictated his ruin. It was the perfect data-driven revenge. My mother-in-law, Patricia, also faced the music. The subpoena of her records forced her to settle quietly with the Foundation's oversight committee, returning a substantial sum and retiring permanently from public life in disgrace. The ripple effect of the DMs was total. My revenge hadn't just secured my freedom. It had purified a toxic social circle and set a necessary legal standard for honesty in court. I now serve on the board of a women's shelter, using my legal and financial knowledge to help others escape abusive relationships. I use Victor's case anonymously as a teaching tool. The importance of documenting everything, never underestimating your own skills, and always preparing to defend your truth. My victory was not just personal. It was a blueprint for empowerment.